So here's the scenario. Hopefully I've got this set up and I can make this work. So what I'm going to do here is I've gone ahead and created a couple of assemblies here, put them in a couple of different folders. I'm gonna bring up the folder structures. I got folder A and B in this test, and in folder B I have the 300 assembly, which is my top level here, the 200 assembly that goes into that, and then I have this 001 part that goes into the 200 assembly. I'm going to knock that down for a second. Actually, I'll explain the rest of it. So if I go from the test B folder to the test A, I have the 100 assembly, so 100, 200, 300. And the 100 assembly contains this 001 part. So this is the same part number as the one in the B folder. Two separate files, right? This one is like a chain link. The one in B, I don't know if you can see it, is just a block. Okay, so we're going to start out with this one in B. And we're going to go ahead and I guess I should throw out there, this is 2019X FD03, so it's FixPack 1923. In doing so, 1923 will allow me to save directly from that folder. It tells me that it's going to drop a copy into my work, saying it's going to go into the my work folder before saving. I'll just go ahead and let it make that copy, dump that into my work, and we'll dump these into the system. A separate screen, it's asking me to log in, so we'll get that done. Hopefully I remember the password, and we'll drag this across. We're just an author, that's fine. So we're going to let this fly. So it goes ahead and drops that in for us. We're just thinking about it. Go ahead. This folder's not on site, or this environment's not on site. It's actually saving down to Buffalo Grove, so bear with me a little bit. The performance isn't awesome. The FCS is way down there. So these things go in without a problem. My next step will be to, I'm going to close this down. Actually, I'm going to close all these down, and I'm going to clear out my local cache. So we're going to go over to 3D Experience My Work. Come on. Thought we were going to go over there. Try that one more time. Experience My Work. And we're just going to grab everything here and clear this cache. Alright, so cache is clear. This is as if I'm a different user, or at least on a different machine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back, and we're going to open up from the A folder the assembly. So we're going to go ahead and pop that open. It's the assembly with that link file in it. We'll go ahead and we'll hit the save on that. It's going to dump that into my work. That is why we cleared the cache. We'll go ahead and let it run the copy. We'll let it run the save. And we're going to go ahead and close this down. Alright, let's go over to my VM. And hopefully my index, I don't know what the index interval is on this, and I may have to pause this while it does its index. So bear with me for a second. We're going to look for, they all had today's date in them. So 6/20/19. And big drum roll, we're looking for that 300 assembly. That's the top level that we're going to work off of. And I got nothing. Maybe we can find it over here. So here's the CAD family. Here's the physical product. Let's bring that over. We'll have a look at that. We don't need this. So this is our assembly as it sits. We are in the structure editor. And what we're going to do is go ahead and select this top level. We're going to go ahead and add an existing component. And we're we're going to be looking for that 100 assembly. 06, 19, how about 06, 2019? And recent 06. There it is. So put that in there. So the kicker here is the system has allowed me to insert two different assemblies. So the 200 and the 100. And inside those assemblies contain a component that is technically two different components, but it's the same SolidWorks file name. Okay? So that's what's going to make this a little bit interesting. So I'm going to move back to the SolidWorks side. We're going to go ahead and, you know what? Let's clear the cache one more time just to make sure we're good. So let's see. I don't want anything in there right now, because technically when I cache this structure, and I can go back there, the database is all right with it because they have different names. The name is unique. However, when I cache this top level, and you know what, I didn't insert it in, so let's just insert it in. So when I cache this top level, what's going to end up happening is it's basically the 300 is going to call for all of these components, and technically these two components have the same file name. They're going to try to cache into the same folder, and that's probably going to be a problem. Windows doesn't like two files of the same name in the same folder. So 6 2019. Let's see if the index was ran. Again, not really sure where that's set, so yeah, we'll have to go to the recent content. That's all right. But here's our main assembly. Let's just go ahead and right-click on this bad boy and hit open. Preparing and collecting data. Oh yeah, that's not good. So this is the underlying problem with any duplicates within the system. Now, in this case, the duplicate part, that file name, is actually two different parts. But technically, if you haven't cached this part, you could have the same part, and if they were done it as two different check-in operations off of two different machines, for example, you would have basically the same part in the database twice. You would still have the same error because they're two separate objects in the database, two separate files in the database. So it would try to cache both of them in the same folder, and bada bing, we got issues. So anytime that we create a duplicate like that, is going to be a problem within the database without a doubt. So I don't know if I should call this a part 2 or an addendum. Call it what you will. So the next question that is typical here is that how often does this duplication typically happen? Is this as big an issue as what Keith makes it out to be? Here's my example. So what I've done here is I've gotten rid of that other sub-assembly that I added to this one earlier to show the actual duplication on checkout. And basically I end up with a structure that 300, 200, and then the 001, this is my component. So it's a 3-part drop down into this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this structure sitting out there, and I'm going to go over to SolidWorks. And I've already cleared my cache, so this is my cache. Why didn't cache show that I'm logged in? That's a little concerning. Oh, it is. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the CTemp. I'm going to go down to that test folder, and I'm going to grab these parts and copy them, and we're just going to take them over into 3D Experience, and we're going to paste them in. Now, you saw it earlier. I could have just let it go in. I had a couple of weird little issues with that. But the bottom line is this is going to accomplish the same thing. I'm going to open the file from here, just with a double click. And SolidWorks will pop it open for me. No issues there. But what you're going to notice is that SolidWorks doesn't know, or Inovia doesn't know that it already has these files. All of these files I literally just checked in, but the fact that I cleared that cache now makes them new files. So I don't expect users to clear their cache all that often, but think of this as a separate machine where, you know, user A checks something in, user B doesn't realize that user A checked something in, and they're going to check it in as well, or it doesn't have to be the entire structure, but maybe it's just the same subassembly or the same piece of hardware or whatever it is. What's going to end up happening here is when I check these in, since the system doesn't understand that they're different, system doesn't understand that they aren't new, that it already has these, it just says, okay, I'm going to go ahead and check these in. And what you're going to see is that I end up with, in the database, two separate object names for the same part. So in this case, or in the first case, we had two different parts that were named the same, that we get a conflict on. And that's bad enough because two different parts with the same part number is obviously an issue. But in this scenario, we end up with the exact same parts, two assemblies and the part, and the issue is that they've been put into the system multiple times, and now we've got multiple items in the system. We don't have a single source of truth anymore. If I revise one, I can revise them independent of each other, and again, we're creating this mess. And this all goes against the fact that these are coming off the SolidWorks file name, and the system doesn't understand that that file name has already been used. So if we wanted to just kind of show the issue here, I'm going to go ahead and do the search for, it was 6/20/19. Now, what we're going to see here, and I'm going to go in and say show all, and we're going to change this to the data grid view so we can see them all. But we're going to end up with multiple parts, and this is just my recent content, so we may have to wait for the indexer to run, because now the ones that I checked in before are registering as separate. So here we go, right here. So you can see the 300 title. These are the SolidWorks titles. These are coming off of the file name and then the configuration. So this is technically the same file name, but you're going to notice, and let me open up, because Inovia doesn't register them as the same file name. It doesn't see them as the same file name. So when we look at them, these are separate objects in the database. So the name, remember, if you go back to previous releases, it's the title, or the type, the name, revision. So type, these are all physical products, but the name, it's sequentially giving these names, and then the revision is all the same. But these are separate objects in the database, and every time you check those in, so if you have 40 users and they all check in as socket head cap screw, you're going to have 40 different socket head cap screws in there. And that's going to happen over and over again. Matter of fact, it's going to open, if your users log into a different machine and check it in again, it's going to happen again. So you have this perpetuating problem of constantly duplicating these parts until they're finally cached on that machine. If the parts would have been cached on this machine, it wouldn't have been as big as an issue. But you can't cache every part in your database to ensure that someone's not overriding it. This is the fundamental problem with the duplication as we see it, and as we see it now inside of Inovia and 19X and UPS.